The morning sun cast long shadows through the ornate windows of Raven's Hollow Palace, but Prince Alexander barely noticed the golden light dancing across the marble floors. His footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as he made his way to the East Wing, where the medical quarters had become a second home over the past few months. The familiar scent of medicinal herbs and clean linens filled the air, a stark reminder of the battle being fought behind closed doors. Alexander paused outside the heavy oak door, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for the brass handle. Inside, he could hear the soft murmur of voices, the royal physician speaking in hushed tones to the attendants. The prince had grown to dread these quiet conversations, knowing they often carried news that would shatter his carefully maintained composure. "Your Highness," Dr. Whitmore emerged from the room, his weathered face bearing the weight of difficult truths. "She's been asking for you since dawn." The prince nodded, unable to trust his voice. Princess Elena had been his closest friend since childhood, their bond forged through countless adventures in the palace gardens and secret meetings in the old library. She was more than a cousin. She was the sister he never had, the one person who understood his struggles with royal duty and the loneliness that came with their position. As he entered the chamber, Alexander's heart clenched at the sight before him. Elena lay propped against silk pillows, her once vibrant auburn hair now dull against her pale skin. But her eyes, those emerald eyes that had always sparkled with mischief, still held their familiar warmth as they met his. "Alexander," she whispered, her voice barely audible but carrying the same gentle tone that had comforted him through countless childhood fears. "I was worried you wouldn't come." "Nothing could keep me away," he replied, moving to the chair beside her bed. The same chair he had occupied for weeks, reading to her from their favorite books and sharing stories of the kingdom beyond these walls. "How are you feeling today?" Elena managed a weak smile. "Like I'm floating between two worlds. The physician says the fever broke during the night, but I can feel myself growing weaker." She reached for his hand, her fingers cold despite the warmth of the room. "Alexander, there's something I need to tell you, something I should have said long ago." The prince squeezed her hand gently, encouraging her to continue. He had noticed the urgency in her requests to see him lately, the way she seemed to be gathering strength for important conversations. There was a weight in her gaze that spoke of unfinished business and words that had been held back too long. "Do you remember the summer we were 12? Elena continued, her voice gaining slightly more strength. "When we found that hidden passage behind the tapestry in the North Tower?" Alexander smiled, despite the sadness threatening to overwhelm him. "How could I forget? You insisted we explore it even though we both knew we'd be in terrible trouble if we were caught. And we discovered that beautiful garden courtyard that had been forgotten for decades. The one with the ancient fountain and the climbing roses that had grown wild and magnificent." Elena's eyes grew distant with the memory. "That was the day I realized something important about myself, about us." The prince waited, sensing the significance of what she was about to share. Outside, he could hear the distant sounds of palace life, servants going about their duties, guards changing shifts, the rhythms of a world that seemed impossibly far from this quiet room where time felt suspended. "I realized that day that you weren't just my cousin and best friend," Elena continued, her grip on his hand tightening slightly. "You were the person I wanted to share every discovery with, every secret garden and hidden wonder. You were the one who made me feel brave enough to explore the unknown passages of life." Alexander felt his breath catch, understanding beginning to dawn. In all their years of friendship, neither had spoken of the deeper feelings that had grown alongside their bond. The constraints of their royal positions, the expectations of arranged marriages to strengthen political alliances, and the fear of changing what they treasured had kept those words locked away. Elena, he began, but she shook her head gently. Let me finish, please. I need to say this while I still can. Her voice grew stronger with determination. I've loved you, Alexander. Not just as family, not just as a friend, but with every part of my heart. I've carried that love silently for years, thinking there would always be more time, more summers in secret gardens, more chances to find the right moment. Tears began to gather in Alexander's eyes. You don't know how many times I've wanted to tell you the same thing. How many sleepless nights I've spent wishing things could be different, that we could be free to follow our hearts instead of our duties. Elena smiled, and for a moment, her face seemed to glow with the vitality he remembered from their carefree days. We've been such fools, haven't we? Waiting for permission to feel what we've always felt, for circumstances to align in a way that would never happen in this world of crowns and obligations. The prince lifted their joined hands to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. If I could trade my crown, my title, everything I have for the chance to build a simple life with you, I would do it without hesitation. I know you would, Elena whispered, and that's exactly why you're the man I fell in love with. Your heart has always been bigger than your throne. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands intertwined, finally speaking truths that had lived in the spaces between their conversations for years. The afternoon light shifted across the room, marking the passage of precious hours that both knew were limited. There's something else, Elena said eventually, her voice taking on a different tone. Something about the kingdom, about threats that are coming. The physicians think I'm delirious when the fever rises, but I've been having visions, Alexander, clear as daylight visions of danger approaching Raven's Hollow. The prince leaned forward, his expression growing serious. Elena had always possessed an intuitive understanding of political undercurrents that others missed. Even in childhood, she had predicted palace intrigues and warned him of courtiers who couldn't be trusted. What kind of danger? Ships on the horizon bearing black sails. An invasion force from the northern kingdoms, led by someone who knows our weaknesses, our secret passages, our guard rotations. Elena's voice grew urgent despite her weakness. Someone who has been feeding them information from within our own court. Alexander felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. The northern kingdoms had been quiet for months, their usual raids and border skirmishes mysteriously absent. He had hoped it meant a period of peace, but Elena's words suggested something far more sinister. Who would betray us? Who has access to such detailed information about our defenses? That's what terrifies me most, Elena replied. In my visions, I see a figure in shadows, someone close enough to walk these halls freely, but whose face I cannot make out. The betrayal comes from within our inner circle, from someone we trust completely. The weight of this revelation settled over Alexander like a heavy cloak. Not only was he facing the loss of his dearest friend and the woman he loved, but the kingdom itself was under threat from an enemy they had welcomed into their midst. Promise me, Elena said, her grip on his hand becoming almost desperate. Promise me you'll be vigilant, that you'll trust your instincts even if it means suspecting people you've known all your life. The vision showed me your coronation, Alexander. You will be king sooner than anyone expects, and when that moment comes, you must be ready to protect what we both love. Elena. Don't talk as if... Promise me, she interrupted, her emerald eyes blazing with an intensity that reminded him of the fierce girl who had challenged him to sword fights in the courtyard. Promise me you'll fight for this kingdom with everything in you, that you'll remember what we discovered in that secret garden, that some things are worth exploring the dark passages to protect. Alexander brought her hand to his heart, feeling its steady beat beneath his palm. I promise you, Elena, I swear on my love for you, on everything we've shared, that I will protect Raven's Hollow and find the traitor who threatens it. She smiled then, an expression of such peace and satisfaction that it took his breath away. Thank you. Now I can rest knowing that the kingdom will be in the hands of someone who understands that true strength comes from love, not fear. As evening approached, Elena's energy began to fade, but she fought to stay awake, to squeeze every possible moment from their time together. Alexander read to her from the book of poetry they had discovered in that hidden courtyard years ago, his voice steady despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "Alexander," she whispered, as shadows began to lengthen across the room. "Tomorrow, when the ceremony begins, remember that love never truly ends. It just transforms into something deeper, something that can guide you, even when the voice you long to hear becomes an echo in the halls of memory." The prince looked up from the book, confused by her words about a ceremony, but Elena's eyes had closed, her breathing becoming deeper and more labored. He set the book aside and simply held her hand, listening to each precious breath and praying for more time that he knew wouldn't come. Outside, the palace bells began to toll the evening hour, their deep bronze voices carrying across the kingdom like a warning of changes to come. Alexander didn't know that these would be the last moments of his old life, before duty and destiny transformed him into something both more and less than the man who sat holding the hand of his heart's truest love. The dawn brought with it a silence that seemed to press against the palace walls with suffocating weight. Alexander had not left Elena's side throughout the night, watching her chest rise and fall with increasingly labored breaths. Dr. Whitmore had entered quietly several times, checking her pulse and adjusting her pillows, but his grave expression spoke volumes about what the morning might bring. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the chamber windows, Elena stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering open. For a moment her gaze was unfocused, distant, as if she were seeing something beyond the confines of the room. Then her eyes found Alexander's face, and clarity returned like a candle being lit in the darkness. "The ceremony," she whispered, her voice so faint he had to lean close to hear her. "It begins today." Alexander frowned, still puzzled by her repeated references to some ceremony. The only royal event scheduled was the quarterly court assembly, still weeks away. "What ceremony, Elena? What are you seeing?" She turned her head slightly toward the window, where the sound of unusual activity could be heard in the courtyard below. Horses' hooves on cobblestones, the clink of armor, urgent voices, calling orders. Alexander had been so focused on Elena that he hadn't noticed the commotion building outside. "Your father," Elena breathed, her hand squeezing his weakly. "The king. Alexander, I'm so sorry." Before the prince could ask what she meant, rapid footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The chamber door burst open, and Lord Garrison, the king's chief advisor, entered with barely concealed panic written across his usually composed features. "Your Highness," Garrison said, bowing quickly before his urgency overcame protocol, "you must come at once. The king, during the night, we believe it was his heart." The words hit Alexander like physical blows. He looked from Garrison's stricken face to Elena, who was watching him with eyes full of sorrow and understanding. Somehow she had known. Her visions had shown her this moment. This devastating convergence of personal and royal loss. "No," Alexander whispered, the word torn from somewhere deep in his chest. "Not now. Not both of you." Elena managed to lift her hand to his cheek, her touch gentle despite her weakness. "You have to go to him, my love. The kingdom needs you to be strong now. I can't leave you. I won't." "You must," she said with surprising firmness. "This is what we talked about. The moment when duty and love must work together, not against each other. Your father needs his son's presence in his final moments, and your people need to see their future king accept his destiny with grace." Lord Garrison cleared his throat delicately. Your Highness, time is precious. The physicians believe His Majesty has perhaps an hour, perhaps less. Alexander felt the world spinning around him. The crushing weight of imminent loss threatening to drive him to his knees. In the span of a single night, he was losing the two people who meant the most to him and gaining a crown he had never wanted to wear so soon. Go, Elena whispered. I'll wait for you. I promise I'll wait until you can return to say goodbye properly. With a heart that felt like it was being torn in half, Alexander kissed Elena's forehead tenderly, memorizing the warmth of her skin, the faint scent of lavender that always clung to her hair. I love you, he whispered against her brow. I have always loved you. And I love you, she replied. Now go be the king this realm needs you to be. The journey through the palace corridors to the king's chambers passed in a blur of urgent whispers, hastily assembled courtiers, and the heavy weight of changing destiny. Alexander's mind reeled between grief for his father and desperation to return to Elena before it was too late. King Robert lay in his grand four-poster bed, looking smaller and more fragile than Alexander had ever seen him. The man who had seemed like an immovable force of nature throughout the prince's childhood was now pale and still, his breathing shallow and irregular. My son, the king whispered as Alexander knelt beside the bed. You came. Father, I'm here. I'm sorry I was with Elena, she's... I know, the king said softly. Garrison told me. Such a tragic night for our family. His hand found Alexander's, gripping it with surprising strength. But you must know, son, that I am proud of the man you've become. You have the heart to be a great king. I'm not ready, father. I don't know how to rule without your guidance. King Robert's eyes grew intense, despite his weakness. Listen to me carefully, Alexander. There are things I must tell you, urgent matters that cannot wait for a proper transition. His voice became more strained with the effort of speaking. The northern kingdoms, we have received intelligence. An attack is planned. Alexander felt his blood turn cold. Elena's visions were proving true with terrifying accuracy. When? Alexander asked. Within the fortnight, perhaps sooner. The king's grip tightened. But that is not the worst of it. We have evidence that someone within the court is providing them with strategic information. Someone close to the crown. The betrayal Elena had foreseen. Alexander's mind raced through possibilities, examining faces and loyalties with new suspicion. Who among their trusted circle could be capable of such treachery? Do we know who? Our spy master has narrowed it to a handful of possibilities. Lord Blackwood, Sir Reginald, perhaps even... The king's voice faltered, and he struggled to continue. Perhaps even Garrison himself. Trust no one completely, my son. Test their loyalty carefully before you reveal any defensive plans. The irony was not lost on Alexander that he was receiving this warning in the presence of Lord Garrison, who stood near the chamber door with an expression of appropriate grief that could be either genuine or expertly performed. There is something else, the king continued, his voice growing weaker. Elena, she has the sight, doesn't she? The visions. Alexander nodded, unsure how his father had come to understand this. Her grandmother had the same gift. It saved my life once, many years ago, when she warned me of an assassination plot. The king's breathing became more labored. If Elena has seen danger, heed her warnings. Her gift may be what saves the kingdom. Father, rest now. Save your strength. No, there is more you must know. The king struggled to sit up slightly. The crown. There is a secret to the coronation crown, hidden within the base, a compartment containing documents, the real defense plans for the kingdom. Only the king knows of this. When they crown you, Remember." The king's words were cut off by a violent coughing fit that brought Dr. Whitmore rushing to the bedside. When the physician looked up at Alexander, his expression was grave. "Your Highness? Perhaps you should call for the Archbishop. The final rites." The next hour passed in a haze of formal procedures and profound grief. Alexander held his father's hand as the king drew his last breath, whispering final words of love and blessing. The moment King Robert's eyes closed for the final time, Alexander felt the full weight of the crown settle on his shoulders like a mountain. "Long live the king," Lord Garrison said solemnly, and the phrase was taken up by everyone present in the chamber. "Long live King Alexander!" But Alexander barely heard the words. His mind was filled with Elena's promise to wait for him and the urgent need to return to her side. However, duty demanded his immediate attention. There were protocols to follow, arrangements to make, and the pressing matter of the kingdom's security in light of the impending attack. "Lord Garrison," Alexander said, his voice carrying a new authority born of desperation and determination. "Summon the council immediately. We have urgent matters of defense to discuss." "Of course, Your Majesty. Shall I include the usual members?" Alexander studied Garrison's face carefully, searching for any sign of deception. "Yes, but I want additional guards present. And I want Sir Marcus to personally oversee security for the meeting. If Garrison was the traitor, this would put him in an uncomfortable position. If he was loyal, he would understand the need for extra precautions." The advisor nodded without hesitation, which was either a good sign or evidence of exceptional acting ability. "I must return to Princess Elena first," Alexander continued. "She must be informed of the king's passing, and I promised I need to see her before the formal proceedings begin." "Of course, Your Majesty. I'll have the council assembled within the hour." Alexander hurried through the corridors, his new title feeling strange and heavy on his shoulders. Servants and guards bowed deeply as he passed, their faces showing a mixture of grief for the dead king and uncertainty about the future under their young ruler. As he approached Elena's chamber, Alexander noticed something was different. The usual guards were at their posts, but there was an additional figure, Sir Reginald, one of the men his father had mentioned as a possible traitor. The knight bowed as Alexander approached. "Your Majesty," Sir Reginald said. "I heard about the king's passing. Please accept my deepest condolences." "Thank you, Sir Reginald. What brings you to this wing of the palace?" "I wanted to pay my respects to Princess Elena. Word is spreading about her condition, and I thought—" He paused, seeming to search for words. "She has been so kind to many of us over the years. I hope to offer a prayer for her recovery." Alexander studied the knight's face, looking for any hint of ulterior motives. Sir Reginald had served the crown faithfully for 15 years, but Elena's visions and his father's warnings had taught him to question everyone. "That's thoughtful of you. However, the princess is very weak today. Perhaps you could offer your prayers from the chapel instead." "Of course, Your Majesty. I understand completely." As Sir Reginald departed with another deep bow, Alexander made a mental note to have him watched closely. The timing of his presence here, so close to both the king's death and Elena's final hours, seemed too convenient to be coincidental. Alexander entered Elena's chamber to find it much changed from the morning. The physician was no longer present, but 2 attendants sat vigil near the window, their faces grave. Elena lay very still against her pillows, her breathing so shallow it was barely visible. "Elena," Alexander whispered, taking his familiar place in the chair beside her bed. "I'm here. I came back just as I promised." Her eyelids fluttered open, and when she saw him, her face lit up with a smile that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her physical weakness. "My king," she whispered, and the words carried such love and pride that Alexander felt tears spring to his eyes. How did you know? I saw it all, remember? The visions showed me this moment. Her hand found his, cold but steady. I saw you wearing the crown, Alexander. You looked magnificent and terrible and heartbroken all at once. I don't want the crown, Elena. I want more time with you. I want the chance to explore more secret gardens and hidden passages. I want to love you properly, openly, without the weight of duty crushing everything beautiful. Elena's smile grew sad but peaceful. We had that, my darling. We had years of loving each other, even if we couldn't say the words. We had adventures and secrets and moments of perfect understanding. Not everyone gets that much happiness. Alexander brought her hand to his lips, pressing kisses to her knuckles as tears ran down his cheeks. It's not enough. A lifetime wouldn't be enough. Then we must make these last moments count for a lifetime, Elena said softly. Tell me about your father's final words. Tell me what he shared with you about the kingdom's dangers. Through his grief, Alexander recognized the wisdom in her request. These might be their last private moments together, but they were also crucial for the kingdom's survival. He told her everything: the confirmation of the invasion, the suspected traitor within the court, the secret hidden in the coronation crown. Elena listened with the sharp intelligence that had always amazed him, even as her life force visibly ebbed. Sir Reginald was here when I arrived, Alexander concluded. He claimed he wanted to pray for your recovery. Elena's eyes sharpened with alarm. He's here now? In the palace? Yes, why? Have you seen him in your visions? The shadowy figure, Elena whispered urgently. I could never see the face, but there was something familiar about the stance, the way he moved. Alexander, it could be him. The betrayer could be Sir Reginald. A chill ran down Alexander's spine. If Elena was right, then the traitor had just been standing outside her chamber, possibly listening to their conversations, learning about the new king's state of mind and his knowledge of the plot. I need to get word to Sir Marcus, Alexander said, starting to rise. Wait! Elena's grip on his hand tightened with surprising strength. Don't leave yet. If he is the traitor, then he already knows you suspect him. A few more minutes won't change anything, but these moments, these are all we have left. Alexander settled back into his chair. Torn between his duty to the kingdom and his desperate need to be with Elena in her final moments. The woman he loved was dying, and the crown on his head demanded impossible choices, even in his darkest hour of grief. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through Elena's chamber windows, painting the room in golden hues that seemed too beautiful for such a heartbreaking moment. Alexander held Elena's hand in both of his, memorizing every detail of her face as she gathered strength for what they both knew would be their final conversation. I can feel myself drifting, Elena whispered, her voice barely audible but still carrying that familiar warmth that had comforted him through countless difficult moments. Like being carried by a gentle current toward something peaceful and bright. Don't go yet, Alexander pleaded, though he knew his words could not hold back the inevitable. Stay with me a little longer. I wish I could, my darling, but I can feel the pull getting stronger. Elena's eyes focused on his face with visible effort. Before I go, there's one more vision I must share with you. The most important one. Alexander leaned closer, hanging on her every word. I see you standing on the battlements of the palace, crowned and magnificent, watching ships retreat on the horizon. The invasion has been defeated, but not through battle. Elena's voice grew stronger as she spoke, as if the vision itself was lending her energy. You've outmaneuvered them, Alexander. You've used their own treachery against them. How? What do I do? The secret in the crown your father mentioned, use it, but not the way they expect. Let the traitor think they've discovered your plans, but give them false information. Make them believe the kingdom's defenses are weakest where they are actually strongest. Elena paused, gathering her breath, and Alexander could see the tremendous effort it took for her to continue speaking. In my vision, Sir Reginald reveals himself completely when he tries to pass along what he believes are your real defensive strategies. But you'll be ready for him, and when the northern ships arrive, they'll find their information is worthless. What happens to Sir Reginald? Justice, Elena said simply. But not revenge. You're too good a man for revenge, Alexander. You'll show mercy where you can, even to those who betray you. A soft knock at the chamber door interrupted them. One of Elena's attendants entered quietly, her face pale with concern. Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion, but Lord Garrison is requesting your immediate presence in the council chamber. He says the matter is extremely urgent. Alexander felt torn between his duty as king and his desperate need to remain with Elena. The woman he loved was slipping away from him, and every moment apart felt like a betrayal of their love. Go, Elena whispered, somehow reading his thoughts as she always had. This is part of your test, Alexander. The kingdom needs you to be strong enough to leave when duty calls, even when your heart is breaking. I can't bear the thought of leaving you alone. Elena smiled with extraordinary tenderness. I won't be alone. I'll carry every moment of our love with me, every secret garden we explored together, every laugh we shared, every gentle touch. Love doesn't end with death, my darling. It just transforms into something eternal. Alexander kissed her forehead gently, tasting the salt of his own tears. I love you, Elena. I will always love you. And I love you, my king. Now go save our kingdom. The walk to the council chamber felt like the longest journey of Alexander's life. Each step took him further from Elena and deeper into the responsibilities of kingship. The corridors seemed to whisper with memories of their childhood adventures, and he could almost hear her laughter echoing from the walls. The council chamber was filled with grim-faced advisors and military commanders, all turning to bow as Alexander entered. Lord Garrison stepped forward immediately, his expression grave. Your Majesty, we've received intelligence that confirms our worst fears. The Northern Fleet has been spotted 3 days sailing from our shores. The attack is imminent. Sir Reginald was among the assembled men, his face appropriately serious, but his eyes watching Alexander with what could have been calculation. Elena's warning echoed in the new king's mind as he took his seat at the head of the long table. What are our current defensive capabilities? Alexander asked, deciding to test his suspected traitor immediately. We have fortified the eastern harbors as planned, Lord Garrison replied. The bulk of our naval forces are positioned there, with smaller contingents at the northern and southern ports. Alexander noticed Sir Reginald listening intently, and made a decision that he hoped would honor Elena's memory and her visions. I think we need to adjust our strategy, Alexander said, speaking clearly so that every man in the room could hear. Move the main fleet to the southern harbor instead. If the northern kingdoms are planning a surprise attack, they'll expect us to defend the eastern approach. We'll catch them off guard by positioning our strength elsewhere. It was a complete lie. The eastern defenses were actually the kingdom's strongest, but Alexander wanted to see what Sir Reginald would do with this false information. Your Majesty, Sir Marcus interjected, are you certain about this strategy? The eastern defenses have been our traditional strength for generations. Alexander caught Sir Marcus's eye and gave him a barely perceptible nod, hoping his most trusted knight would understand that there was more to this plan than appeared on the surface. I'm quite certain, Alexander replied firmly. Have the orders prepared immediately, and I want absolute secrecy about this repositioning. Only the men in this room should know the true locations of our forces. Sir Reginald spoke up for the first time. Your Majesty, such a major repositioning will take time. Are we certain we have enough advance warning? We'll have to make do with the time we have, Alexander said, watching the knight's face carefully. Sir Reginald, I want you to personally oversee the movement of supplies to support the southern defense. Can I count on your discretion? Of course, Your Majesty. You have my absolute loyalty. The words seemed genuine, but Alexander remembered Elena's warning about the betrayer's ability to appear trustworthy. As the council meeting continued, he assigned various responsibilities to different members, always ensuring that Sir Reginald was given information that would be devastating if passed to the enemy. After the meeting concluded and the advisors began to file out, Alexander lingered in the chamber with Sir Marcus. "Something troubles you about our new strategy, Marcus?" Alexander asked quietly. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but that was not like any military planning I've seen from you before. You've always been methodical, careful. This seemed impulsive, reckless, different," Sir Marcus finished diplomatically. Alexander looked around to ensure they were truly alone, then spoke in a low voice. "Marcus, I need you to trust me completely on this. The strategy I outlined tonight was deliberate misdirection. Our real defenses remain in the east, but I suspect we have a traitor in our midst who will pass tonight's false plans to the enemy." Sir Marcus's expression grew serious. "Who do you suspect?" "Sir Reginald. But I need proof before I can act. I want you to have him watched closely but carefully. If he's our traitor, he must not suspect we know." "Understood, Your Majesty. But may I ask what led you to this suspicion?" Alexander's heart clenched as he thought of Elena, lying alone in her chamber while he dealt with matters of state. "Someone very wise warned me to look for betrayal from within our inner circle. Someone whose judgment I trust more than my own." Sir Marcus nodded, not pressing for more details. "It will be done. And Your Majesty, how is Princess Elena?" The question hit Alexander like a physical blow. In the urgency of defending the kingdom, he had almost allowed himself to forget the personal tragedy unfolding just corridors away. "I must return to her immediately," Alexander said, rising from his chair. "Continue with the false preparations as discussed, but quietly maintain our real defenses in the east. And Marcus, be ready for anything." Alexander hurried through the palace corridors, his heart pounding with dread that he might already be too late. The evening shadows had lengthened, and the palace felt different somehow, as if the very air had changed while he was away. As he approached Elena's chamber, he could hear voices inside, soft, urgent murmurs that made his blood run cold. He pushed open the door to find Dr. Whitmore and both attendants gathered around Elena's bed. Their faces told him everything he needed to know. "Your Majesty," Dr. Whitmore said gently, "you've returned just in time. The princess has been asking for you." Alexander rushed to Elena's bedside, taking her hand in his. Her skin was cool and translucent, her breathing so shallow he had to watch carefully to see the rise and fall of her chest. "Elena," he whispered. "I'm here, my love. I'm here." Her eyelids fluttered open, and when she saw him, she smiled with such radiant peace that it took his breath away. "My king," she breathed. Did you set the trap?" "Yes. If Sir Reginald is our traitor, he'll reveal himself within days." "Good. You're going to save the kingdom, Alexander. I saw it." Elena's voice was growing fainter, but her eyes remained bright with love and pride. "I saw you standing victorious, protecting everything we hold dear." Alexander lifted her hand to his lips, pressing desperate kisses to her palm. "Stay with me, Elena. Please don't leave me alone." "You're never alone," she whispered. "Every time you walk through these halls, every time you make a decision that protects innocent people, every time you choose love over fear, I'll be with you." Elena's breathing became more labored, and Alexander could feel her slipping away despite his desperate grip on her hand. The secret garden. she whispered, her voice barely audible now. Meet me there, someday, when your work is done. Elena, no, please. Thank you, she breathed, her eyes fixed on his face with infinite tenderness. Thank you for loving me, for letting me love you, for giving me the most beautiful life. Her voice faded to nothing. And Alexander watched in helpless agony as the light slowly dimmed in her emerald eyes. Her final breath was so gentle it seemed like a sigh, like someone settling into peaceful sleep. Elena! Alexander's voice broke on her name, echoing through the chamber with such raw grief that it seemed to shake the very walls. But there was no answer. The woman who had been his dearest friend, his truest love, his wisest counselor, was gone. Alexander collapsed forward, his forehead resting against their joined hands, sobs racking his entire body. In the doorway, having arrived too late to say goodbye, Dr. Whitmore, the attendants, and Sir Marcus stood in respectful silence as their new king grieved for the woman who had held his heart. But even in the depths of his sorrow, Alexander could hear Elena's quivering voice echoing in the hallway of his memory, telling him that love never truly ends, that some things are worth fighting for, and that he had the strength to protect everything they both cherished. 3 days later, as Alexander stood on the palace battlements, watching the Northern fleet retreat in confusion and defeat, he understood the full scope of Elena's final gift to him. Sir Reginald had indeed proven to be the traitor, passing along the false defensive plans exactly as predicted. The enemy ships had attacked the southern harbor expecting light resistance, only to find it was a trap that led them into the range of the kingdom's most powerful coastal cannons. "Long live the king," Sir Marcus said quietly, as they watched the last of the enemy sails disappear over the horizon. Alexander nodded, feeling the weight of the crown on his head and the echo of Elena's voice in his heart. She had been right about everything: the attack, the traitor, and most importantly, about love transforming into something eternal that would guide him through all the challenges to come. As he turned to walk back into the palace, Alexander could have sworn he heard familiar laughter drifting from the direction of the old tower, where a hidden garden waited behind an ancient tapestry, where 2 children had once discovered that some passages were worth exploring, no matter how dark they seemed. The quivering voice would echo in these hallways forever, a reminder that love and duty could work together, that wisdom could come from the most unexpected sources, and that true kings are made not by crowns, but by the depth of their willingness to sacrifice for those they serve. Elena was gone, but her love remained, woven into the very fabric of the kingdom she had helped him save. And Alexander knew that as long as he ruled with her memory in his heart, he would never truly be alone.